Hey sidekicks, welcome back to another video. This time I'll be sculpting Misty from the Pokémon TV show, which aired in the early 2000s, I believe. It's when I first saw it on Saturday morning TV and the like. I think it was weekdays actually, but that's for another story. And later on I'm gonna make a little Togepi to accompany her, and I have a full character sheet with me this time, and a turnaround I've made with the best of my drawing ability, and in terms of making like a character sheet, of course. And I've got also some of my sculpting tools. A few are handmade, all for their own unique purposes. This is kind of a very small sculpt. I'd imagine this sits by your desk as you're working, giving you encouragement for your work day. I think it'd be interesting if I'd ever made like little figurines that you just put on your desk, but they'd be my own style. I think there are some ideas I see like floating around Etsy of these tiny little animals, these little cute critters, and they're meant to be like desk friends or whatever. I think that would be an interesting idea to make another version of that, not like maybe small like cute anime-esque like figurines, maybe even chibis. Who knows, but let me know if you think that's an interesting idea. But for now, I'm just getting ready to sculpt Misty. I have I don't have that much sculpty, I've realized, as I was making this. So I opted to use some Milliput, and I believe the drying, the way it dries is you have two components because of the two-part epoxy, and you have the clay part and then you have the hardener. Well, so it's more like the resin and the hardener like combined together, and you have sort of a 3-hour window to work and mold the clay into what have you. And the idea with this figurine, it was to make the like essential parts, the head, limbs, and body, out of the Milliput as a base, and with the use of wire, both copper and aluminium. I think I did fairly good by constructing the body, like the head and body first. It was in some ways a setup for a couple failures, but we'll get into that later on. The fundamental decision I made was to have this done in pieces in order to paint this with spray some of it, and paint with a brush. Although I found while doing these that I found like painting was the most tedious part of making this, at least to me personally. I personally like just to make the sculpt in itself, model the pieces and put them together in a satisfying way. And I think the way I constructed the head to put on the top of the rib cage, as it looks like here, I think that was a good choice in my opinion. And I put like I add the detail of the face with special grey Sculpey, and it's grey medium Sculpey. I find this is probably good for adding details to sculpts. I learned a few of these things from the book on how to make your own garage kits. So if that sounds like something that could be of interest to you, let me know by hitting this subscribe button, and you'll be treated to an in-depth look to that in future. It's really fun, eye-opening read, and I can't wait to talk more about it. Now, more on the Misty sculpt. I found it. I went back and forth with layering each part of the figurine with Milliput and Sculpey. The former I chose for its carving. I could carve into it what I wanted, and if I made a part look too blocky or cut to bits, I could always add more on top of it and smooth that out, which is pretty cool. And yeah, later on came Togepi. This was after I did all the arms, which I could semi-attach if I wanted to. The bottom legs were the most struggling part about this. I really haven't mastered the puppet method as outlined in the book on garage kits, and I want to try to get better at that, because if you can't expect your figurine to even stand, well, is it even worth it, you know? But it's interesting in that how I was able to connect the pieces to one another with proper impression, trying to make an impression in the clay itself to make it feel like a puzzle piece. Which, believe it or not, it did work for a time. It just needs some refinement, in my opinion. I sprayed all the pieces with a black primer, and on reflection, I think a white primer may have been a bit more suitable, as well. It does pop here, like this. I used a corpse pale color from miniature set, and that's technically what it's called. I'm not saying she's dead or anything, but I think it might have made the skin pop better, and I don't know why I feel this way, but I just feel like I have to cover up all the black spots. But I think it turned out okay, all things considered. I added more detail, especially in the eyes, in the final result. Of course, there was one thing left, and we all know that we can't start our day without putting on our shoes and tying up our laces, so to speak. So I added a quick dab of Milliput. I mixed a little tiny bit and molded some shoelaces onto the shoes, then added white paint onto them. I wonder if the Milliput itself takes longer to dry and harden if it's small, because I think I've heard somewhere that it does take shorter time if there's a larger amount of it, at least from what I've read online. I'm actually quite pleased with how this turned out, and it's I think it makes up for the failure of the documenting of the Steel Ball Run sculpture I made earlier on. I just couldn't compile all the footage as I wanted, and that would have been a great video hadn't I fumbled all the files. But I'm really pleased with how this turned out. Togepi is very cute here, and I like the face. Painted it pretty well, despite being very not pleased with how I do painting in general. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Remember to like and subscribe and all that good stuff. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Cheers, and have a good day.